Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hello, 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 hello. How's everyone doing? It's good to hear from people here on this beautiful February 12th, 2024. I just want to say what's up, what's up. It's good to see and hear from everyone. All right, so first of all, I wanted to put a shout out here for Rainier Avenue Radio. I wanted to put a couple plugs. For those individuals that did not get a chance, make sure you guys come down to Columbia Theater and check out the Call to Conscience Black History Month Museum. It's going to be going on from February 12th all the way through the 29th or the end of this month. Make sure you guys take a look at that. It's a beautiful experience. Also, too, the Nasty Mix Reunion Records will also be here at Columbia Theater Thursday, February 15th at 6 o'clock. So make sure you guys take a look at that. That would be pretty cool to take a look at. I did not know that Sir Mix-a-Lot was from Seattle, so that's pretty cool. I got a chance to take a look at that, and it was a pretty cool experience. So make sure you guys take a look at that. Also, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So last week we talked a little bit about mental health. Today, guess what? We're going to talk about mental health. I've had a couple people ask me about how do we cope with mental health, right? So I've had clients kind of reach out and say, well, what do we do if we're in this situation? So today I wanted to look at a couple things that I noticed that are indicative of men's mental health, but also mental health in general. And people were like, well, how do you cope if you're going through the situation, or if you have a family member that's going through it? So today I want us to kind of cover it. So if you are going through depression, or you may know of a family member kind of going through depression, I wanted to talk about some aspects that you can kind of work on to kind of help that person through that, or for yourself, right? So you can either seek some therapy or counseling or life coaching, which is what we do. Also practice self-care activities such as exercising, hobbies, or meditation. That helps. Also connect with supportive friends and family. Recently I had an individual going through a couple things, and they were cool enough to have a family member kind of reach out, and I was able to kind of support and assist that particular family member. They're doing a little bit better now, but make sure you kind of reach out to your friends and family so that you can get help that way. Also, consider the medication too, because sometimes the medication that you can be on can cause some problems. So to make sure that your pH balance are cool, you know, the way you're thinking or processing, things of that nature, make sure that that's kind of helping you as well. Okay. The next thing I want to cover too is anxiety. That's pretty prevalent here in Seattle, but I think just in general, just with the stresses that we deal with. So how do we handle that? Okay. Well, if you're going through that, first thing I would say is typically when you're in anxiety type of mode, you're in what I like to call fight or flight mode. So the first step is to do this. 1, 2, 3, take a deep breath. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Let it go. If you do that, what that does is that puts you in the moment, and you practice that at least 3 or 4 times. It kind of helps your brain get out of that fight or flight mode. For those individuals that don't know, fight or flight, basically back in the day when we were hunter and gatherers, if we saw a big bear, if we saw something that was going to cause us harm, our body went to fight or flight, which basically all the energy that we needed to protect ourselves would switch out of our brain. The things that we needed to digest, all that would transfer over to give us immense amount of strength so we could protect ourselves to fight from that situation. And in those days, we would need to protect ourselves. Well, fortunately, we don't really have, depending on where you live, you don't really have those situations now where you have to fight to save yourself. I mean, unless you're in a community where, you know, that's happening. But typically, we still have those types of things that happen in our brain. So how do we get out of that? Well, taking those deep breaths, breathing deeply, kind of clear your mind out so that you can tap into the thought process to process out of that. makes a big difference. And when you're in a fight or flight mode, what happens is your body is shot up with cortisol, which basically puts your body in a very tenseful situation. And you're not able to think realistically, you're not able to think calmly. And so you want to make sure that you take deep breaths to kind of calm yourself down, put yourself in the moment. A lot of times you can just say, wait a minute, is this really worth, me taking this to the 10th degree? Is this really worth me, putting myself in a situation where I don't have a job, right? You don't want to lay hands on people. These are things that you can process as you practice these particular skills. It basically puts you in the mode where you can problem solve better to get out of that situation. But also, too, the second one, challenge negative thoughts and cognitive distortions through cognitive behavior therapy. That would be meeting with myself or another professional to help you problem solve how to get out that situation. So I've had clients who've had issues, who were struggling with their job. Maybe they had coworkers that were very rude, or maybe coworkers weren't being honest. And depending on how they were raised, maybe they wanted to lay hands. And I would say, you know what, that probably wouldn't be a good idea, because that would put you in a situation where now you don't have a job, right? And they say, you know what, you're right. So maybe coming up with different processes to kind of get yourself out of that situation in a way that's going to be beneficial for you. But we got to kind of change the thought process with that. Also, too, engaging in regular physical activity. Well, why is that important? Well, if you train your body to deal with stresses, right? Because when you're training, you're going to sweat, you're going to work out, you're going to breathe heavy. Practicing being in those uncomfortable situations, what happens is your body has a higher threshold. You're able to kind of handle those things and really not like blow it out of proportion. So it's important to kind of practice. And even if it's walking, just going for a walk, right? The hills out here in Seattle, man, that's enough to just get a workout, right? Holding that umbrella while you're walking up the hill, that would definitely be a workout. All right. Also, limit the caffeine and alcohol intake, because that affects your processing as well. All right, now let's go to the next slide. Stress. That is a common scenario that we deal with in everyday life. And, we have stressors that we deal with all the time, but sometimes it can get out of proportion. Well, when we have stressors in life, prioritize tasks and set realistic goals. You may say, well, what are the priorities? Well, typically what I do is when I look at my day, I say, okay, what is the main important thing that I need to handle right now? That would be my priority, right? So, for example, if the house is burning down, obviously that would need to be something you take care of. If you have a bill that you need to take care of the bill if you can handle it. If there's a certain situation that needs to be resolved, like right now, I would practice that. Also, too, as you practice these skills, you kind of get better and better and better. So, for example, let's say you're working a job, you got a family, you got, your husband, you have these responsibilities. Practice taking care of that. If you have a child, obviously your child is very important. You want to make sure you take care of your child's needs. But a lot of times, if you organize those things, it makes it a little bit easier for you, because some things you can do ahead of time, right? Also, practice time management techniques. I like to actually use certain types of apps to help me. I have the iPhone. So what I'll usually do is I'll go into the reminders, kind of organize things. When I have people kind of come into my business, I have a calendar that I use that helps me organize things. But before I actually do that, I have my schedule of things that I have to take care of. I prioritize those, and then I allow individuals to access my calendar. This is just the example that I use to kind of make things a lot easier. And then certain things you have to delegate. So if you have certain people that in your life that can help you, ask them nicely to help you, right? Or if it's a situation where maybe you don't really have support, there might be other resources you could use. So, for example, let's say that due to your schedule, maybe you can't particularly do the laundry. Maybe you have a family member who can help you with the laundry, or maybe you got dry cleaning. You could drop it off if you have discretionary funds to take care of that. So just think of resources that you could utilize to make your life a lot easier. When you look at it in terms of your mental health being your main focus, it makes life a lot easier as you regularly organize your day. Also, engage in stress relieving activities. So, yoga, for those individuals who like to do that, you can work out, mindfulness, hobbies, things that bring you joy, things that you get excited about doing. That's really, really, really exciting, because when you do those things that bring you joy, guess what happens? You want to do it again. Also, what happens is it puts you in a mode of excitement. It puts you in a mode of problem solving. It puts you in a mode of, okay, cool. What can I do more to put myself in a better situation to do it next time? So recommend that. Okay, cool. Let's go to the next one. Burnout. How many people have ever been in a situation where you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired? Raise your hand, or if you want to communicate on our Instagram, feel free to reach out on Instagram. If you've been in that situation, how did you handle that?
Oh my.
Exactly. What do you do in those situations where you burnt out, right? You don't want to act a fool and just get kicked out of that situation, but it's a definite issue, right? So you want to make sure you set boundaries, very important, between work and your personal life. What does that look like? Well, for me, a lot of times I do a lot of stuff online. So what I have to do is certain times I have to kind of shut off my phone, do certain things I need to take care of for myself. What I'll end up doing is I'll do a lot of stuff in the morning. Make sure I take care of stuff in the morning to do all the necessary things that I need to take care of. Also, take regular breaks throughout the day. So if you need to go to the restroom, you need to run your errands, you need to take care of those very important priority issues that you need to take care of. Do that. That makes things a lot easier. Also, practice self-compassion and self-care. You might say, well, what is that? Well, a lot of times we may have certain negative talk. So let's say you made a mistake. You may speak bad of yourself. Practice cutting that out. Say, you know what? Okay, I made a mistake this time. I'll do better next time. Also, make sure you take care of yourself, right? Things to support yourself. Do whatever you need to do to support yourself. Very, very important. Also, seek support from colleagues and supervisors. We only know certain skills, and as we talk to other people, guess what? They give us other resources that we can get better. And also, too, when we network with people, we end up having what we call a reciprocal type of relationship, because some people know more things in other areas than we know, and we can kind of have that reciprocal relationship, and allows us to be more successful. Okay, so keep that in mind as far as circumventing being burnt out. Also, suicidal thoughts. Now, we look outside here in Seattle, we notice that we don't see a lot of sun, and that could be frustrating, right? So make sure you reach out for somebody, right? A trusted friend, family members, mental health professional like myself, or someone you can trust. Make sure you constantly tapped into somebody, right? You can contact the suicide line or emergency services. Make sure that you're constantly talking to somebody that you know cares about you, to kind of make sure that you are staying balanced within yourself, right? Create a safety plan. Make sure if you're working with things that are triggering you, you have somebody that's helping you. Very, very important. Okay. Dealing with triggering or coping strategies. You can reach out to us. We can help you with that. One strategy that I recommend that's very beneficial is what I talked about before, is the breathing. Make sure you breathe. That's important. If someone's triggering you, you might need to get yourself out of that situation, right? To give yourself time to de-escalate the situation. Very, very important. Another thing too is see if you can get a mediator, right? Somebody that you know who is a little bit more level-headed, that you trust, that allow you to kind of come back. One technique too that I'll give you guys is very powerful too is, let's say that you're really, really pissed off or something. Someone's really blowing you off, right? Take a deep breath, count down to 3, and then in your mind, count down from 20 down to 0. And you want to start at 20 going to 0. And the reason why is when you're in that fight or flight mode, if you start at 20 and you work your way down, you have to actually think, right? So if you're thinking, you can't really be mad and thinking at the same time. So it's a way to kind of trick your brain to force yourself to process, to calm down. And as you're thinking of the numbers, you're typically not going to be going like 20, 19, 18. No, you're going to be taking your time because you're cognitively trying to process, okay, how do I get from 20 to 0 in a sequential manner? Breathing, taking your time. And as you're going through that process, that's going to calm you down and allow you to process that a little bit better. So that's a little bit of a trick, and try that. For those individuals that can try that, I'm curious to see if you guys can reach out and tell me how that works for you. Okay. All right, cool. Let's go to the next slide. Relationship conflicts. This is a very, very popular one that I noticed that a lot of my clients reach out to me about. Now, relationships could actually be familial relationships. It could also be job relationships. It could be relationships in terms of wife, husband. It could be, couples relationships. This is pretty deep. And the one thing I noticed, and I'm gonna go through here, but when you have these conflicts, you want to practice active listening and effective communication. Very, very important. And what is active listening? Well, one recommendation I would have is get a timer, right? And let's say you want to have a conversation with somebody, set the timer for, let's say, 3 minutes. During the time that the timer set off, the only person speaking is the person who, let's say you flip a coin, one person speaks, the other person listens. The timer set for 3 minutes. All that person does is speak. All the other person does is listen. And what I recommend is the person listening, taking notes. Now, I know that's going to be a challenge for some people listening because typically you want to like throw in your 2 cents and comment and that type of thing. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to change our brain to actually take in the information, and we want to have an understanding of where that person's coming from. And when we're trying to get our words in, then we're not really listening. And when they are saying certain things, you're writing it down because they may voice out some concerns or some things that you want to talk about. And you could use some of the same verbiage that they used to communicate forward. So I think that's really important. But also, too, the person talking is going to feel like they're being heard. So make sure you guys set the timer. And then once that person's done, then you can switch it off. And the person who was listening, now they can say, okay, I understood you shared this, and this. Thank you for sharing. I have some concerns with these X amount of items, and then you communicate it. And then what happens is that person doesn't feel defensive. They feel like they're being heard. And especially when the other individual says, oh, I heard you say this, and this. I may have some questions with that, but that helps you have effective communication because a person's being heard and the other person can communicate their particular aspects. Okay. Also, too, seek couples therapy or relationship counseling. That's important because some of the strategies I'm mentioning, these are things we talk about because you may have grown up in a family where you may not have had effective communication. So our job is to kind of teach you that, right? Because everyone's different, everyone learns differently. So it's important to have these strategies so that we can be effective with our communication. Big, big importance. Practice empathy and understanding towards your partner's perspective. Now, what I like to say is treat others like you want to be treated, but from a compassionate standpoint. Let me say that again. Treat others like you want to be treated, but from a compassionate standpoint. A lot of times, if we had a long day, someone's coming at us, we may be aggressive. We have to be mindful and treat that person like we want to be treated when we have a bad day, right? So we want them to be empathetic. We want them to be understanding. And so you want to be mindful of your actions. You can't control anyone else, but be mindful of your actions as you communicate with people. And that makes a big, big, big difference, right? If you're kind in your presentation, if you're empathetic, and basically what that means is you're coming from your heart. Typically, when I meet with my clients, sometimes there may be concerns that husband and wife may have, or going through a marital divorce or something like that. And I'll usually say, okay, guys, when we're meeting, we're going to speak from our heart. I understand that there's some hurt, there's some pain. I get that. During this meeting today, the goal is for us to speak from our heart. And that means that we're using I statements. I feel this way because of the situation. We're not pointing fingers, because typically when we point a finger, we got 3 points back at us. So we want to make sure we take stock of what we're doing. Be empathetic, be understanding. Usually if you come at somebody kind and respectful, typically they'll come back with you the same way. If they don't, that's a challenge that's between them and their God or their creator. That's nothing to do with you. Also, too, set boundaries and establish healthy relationship dynamics. What does that look like? Well, if someone's calling you out of your name, you need to let them know, hey, with all due respect, let's have an amicable conversation. I understand you're upset. I get that. However, if you need some time to calm down, that's cool. We can come back a little bit later. That's how you give people boundaries, because you don't want to have a conversation where everyone's on 10. By that, I mean everyone's really fired up. So make sure people are calm. But if people need some time, hey, you know what? Let's come back to it. Let me set the timer, go get some water, kind of, change it up a little bit so that people can calm down and have an amicable conversation. Really, really important. Also, too, here in Seattle, we know the weather can make people feel a lot lonely, or if people have certain deaths in the family, or they lost loved ones, or loss of a job, or things of that nature, people can feel a little lonely, right? So reach out to friends, family members, have that social connection, join a club or group or class or classmate that have shared interests. The biggest thing that I think for me that's helped is volunteering, right? Or do something you love, or connect with something or someone that you feel you can learn something from. You can go to the library. You can kind of reach out. If you want to kind of check out some of the things, the events that we talked about, you might meet people that. Heck, you can even come down to Rainier Avenue. I'm sure that there might be some resources here to help you if you're interested, right? If you have that availability. But reach out in the community and connect with somebody, and you'll feel like, okay, I have something to give, and that makes a big difference. Also, consider adopting a pet. I noticed when I first moved out here, I noticed a lot of dogs and cats and stuff out here. So, the cool thing about dogs is they have unconditional love that they give to you all the time. They teach you through their actions. And so when you actually have to take care of a pet, that creates a situation where you're responsible. And they're going to always be there. They're not going to judge you. They're going to have your back. If that's too much of a commitment, maybe you can pet sit, right? Or you watch a pet for somebody for a couple days, right? And that'll kind of help you feel a little bit better. Okay, just throwing some different examples out there to kind of help you out. Okay. All right. Social isolation. Okay, so make an effort to connect with others regularly, even virtually. So with COVID, I mean, you can always reach out to someone through a phone call, or through a Zoom or a Google Meet, something like to that effect. Personally, I like to meet with people in person. On some occasions, not all the time, but on some occasions, it's cool to just kind of connect with social events or gatherings. You could join an online community or forum, or again, volunteer to participate in groups. I think that will help. But sometimes there's some benefits of being isolated socially, right? I personally feel that if the universe is putting you in a situation where you're a little bit isolated, that might be some time for you to reflect and actually work on some things within yourself that's maybe triggering you. And if you need some help with that, feel free to reach out to me here. And we can try to do what we can and assist you with that. But it's important to kind of work through those things so that as you move forward in life, you're better equipped emotionally to kind of handle the challenges that come your way. All right. Also, addiction. That's a big one. A lot of people like to do games, right? That's an addiction. It could be any type of addiction, right? Overworking. It could be, drinking. It could be a lot of things. So being mindful to have more balance, right? Engage in evidence-based addiction treatment programs, working with myself or other professionals to kind of change some different processes to kind of change things, create a strong support network with friends and families and peers. Again, practicing self-care, stress management techniques. If you may need to attend regular support groups, things of that nature. If you have an issue with that type of thing, feel free to reach out. We'll do what we can to assist you with that. All right. Also, a big one, anger management. This is the big one. Learn and practice relaxation techniques such as the deep breathing I talked about. Also, progressive muscle relaxation. Develop healthy communication styles and skills to express emotions effectively. So it may not be a good idea to just yell at somebody because you're upset. Now, it's okay to express it yourself. However, that's not really healthy to just kind of blow being upset at somebody else. So you might need some time to kind of de-escalate the situation, or maybe get away from the situation and kind of work through and then communicate to people what you're going through. Identify triggers to develop coping strategies to manage anger in constructive ways, right? So it would not be good to just scream at somebody because you had a bad day. Now, yes, you can have a bad day, but it's important to be mindful of how you come at people when you have those bad days. And also, seek out therapy or counseling to explore those underlying issues that contribute to anger. Okay. All right, guys. So we covered quite a bit today. We're gonna be still wrapping it up here, but again, I just want to say, appreciate you guys reaching out. Our next show today will be the Better Together and Living Powerfully at 6 o'clock with my friend Dr. Tracy Harrell. Make sure you guys take a look at that. Also, too, without further ado, we want to make sure that you guys take a look at the Call to Conscience Black History Month Museum. That's going to be from February 12th all the way through the 29th from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Make sure you guys take a look at that. Definitely recommend it. Also, make sure you don't forget the Nasty Mix reunion. That's going to be here at Columbia City Theater Thursday, February 15th at 6 p.m. Make sure you guys do what you can to get there. And without further ado, I'll see you guys next week. You guys have a good one. And you guys have fun. Peace. Deuces.
Welcome to a pivotal